All right, hello and welcome to this training. As you can see from the title, what we're going to be covering today is why stupid people become more successful. As you can see from the overview, what we're going to be talking about more specifically is first, the real enemy not being ignorance, why fools win and you wait, the confidence shortcut you must take, and how to weaponize the curve and start now. After which, we will discuss the review and then your action items for the day or the next few days. So without further ado, let's talk about the real enemy isn't ignorance. So most people aren't necessarily held back by stupidity. They're held back by, most of the times, by hesitation. And you've probably talked yourself out of more opportunities than the world ever did. And you convinced yourself you weren't ready, you weren't qualified, and you weren't at the level yet. But those were just excuses dressed up as logic. And so you assume that others are smarter, better, more capable, and you assume that you're missing some invisible checklist. And so you just wait, you research, you plan, you prepare, but you don't actually really move. And the real issue is you think that there is some elite threshold that you need to reach before you're allowed to begin. There isn't. Nobody gave those dumb people permission either. They just decided to go. The smarter you are, the more likely you are to doubt yourself. Intelligence creates self-awareness, and that self-awareness reveals gaps. When you're sharp, you see what's missing. When you know something about a subject, you know what you don't know, or at the very least, you know that there is a lot you don't know. So, ironically, the more you learn, the more you question what you haven't learned yet, and you start measuring yourself against polished experts instead of the amateurs who are already doing the thing you're scared to do. Meanwhile, people far less capable than you don't see those gaps. They don't hesitate. They think they're ready because they don't know enough to know what they're actually missing. And that's the Dunning-Kruger Effect in full swing. And you can see it, especially these days online. When you know a little, you feel like you know a lot. Confidence is high and delusion fuels action. These are the people who show up fast, they show up loud, they show up proud because they're blind to how unqualified they actually are. Because they look confident, others assume that they must be capable. So they get opportunities by default. But you, with your self-awareness, you sit back and you second guess and you wait until you feel ready. The problem is you never will. There's always another book, there's always another course, there's always another certification or prep phase that you need to go through or you feel like you need to go through, and the loop doesn't end. And to be quite honest, when you decide to, for example, invest in yourself or go into some coaching or something like that, you always make up excuses as to why you're not ready to join yet or why you're not ready to go into that yet. Because you know that you might become successful and you don't necessarily like that, but that's a different topic for a different day. Now, this is how the Dunning-Kruger effect looks like. So basically on the left, you have confidence and you have average competence as well. And as you can see, confidence is very high where competence or no competence is. And so as you become an expert, obviously your confidence increases. When we go to the average competence part of the graph, you'll see that there is basically almost no confidence there. And that's the brutal irony. The ones who hesitate always get left behind, while the clueless almost always make progress. And you think the world rewards the most prepared, but it really doesn't. It rewards the most visible. And you can see that, especially nowadays with the recent Apple products, for example. But people don't buy the best product. They buy what they see. They follow what's loud and they trust what looks certain. Once someone starts moving, even if they're clueless, the world opens up to them and opportunities snowball from there. You, on the other hand, are waiting for a signal that never really comes. You want to be discovered for your potential, but potential isn't marketable. Output is. Action is. And so here's what no one tells you. Nobody's checking if you're qualified. You imagine some invisible gate that only lets in the worthy, but that gate is in your head. The people you think are judging you, they're usually too busy focusing on themselves. The ones who are actually judging you don't really matter. And the people you admire who are levels ahead of you, they're not judging, they're admiring you. So there is no invisible gate that only lets in the worthy. And people are too busy focusing on themselves. There is no global standard, no certification from the universe, no point where someone appears and says, okay, you're officially good enough to begin. Most successful people started when they had no idea what they were doing, and they learned because they started, not the other way around. If you look around, you know at least 10 people dumber than you making more money than you. And if you don't have them in your immediate circle, then you just need to open Instagram. The world is flooded with underqualified people doing bold things, and they're building businesses, getting clients, growing audiences, and taking up space. Not because they're geniuses, but because they believe they were allowed to try, and they are. You are too. And so every time they succeed even a little, their confidence actually builds, as well as their experience, and their ignorance rewards them. Their delusion multiplies into results. Meanwhile, you're waiting until your portfolio looks perfect, until your brand is polished, until your positioning is clear. But that perfectionism is just procrastination in disguise. Now, you're not underqualified, you're just overthinking. So stop calculating, start doing, start badly, start messy, start while you're still figuring it out. Most people who made it can barely remember how clueless they were when they actually began, and that's how irrelevant it actually is. You don't prepare your way into confidence, you act your way into clarity. And it's not about arrogance, it's about willingness. Willingness to look dumb, to stumble, to keep going anyway. That's what separates the ones who rise from the ones who rot. You only see people's highlight reels, but behind the curtain, they're making it up as they go, just like you would. Literally. No one posts their mistakes, their breakdowns, their doubts, but they're there. You're not weird for doubting yourself, you're just honest. That doesn't mean you're not ready. Every expert was once an amateur who moved anyway. The only difference is the action, the motion. If you wait until you're sure, you'll wait forever. Confidence comes after action, not before that. Success comes after belief, not before that. It doesn't matter how slow you start. Once you begin, gravity starts to shift. Tiny wins always build trust, and every small action will rewire your brain to believe in yourself more than yesterday. So, if you keep waiting, life will move on without you. Others will pass you, not because they were better, but because they had the guts to go. And so, the world isn't waiting for perfect people, it's waiting for you. You don't need to become someone else. You don't need more time. You just need to decide. And once you realize that even the foolish can win through motion, you'll start to wonder what else you've been overestimating and what it would mean to actually flip the game on its head. So let's talk about why fools win and you wait. So the dumb move fast because they don't know any better. The smart hesitate because they actually do. And when you don't know what you don't know, everything feels pretty simple. There's no friction, no voice in your head that is whispering about all the risks. It's not bravery or anything or courage or anything like that. It's just really blindness. But that blindness gets them moving, and movement always beats analysis, and it always creates results. So they default to action because they're not burdened by overanalyzing every little detail. That ignorance is what gives them speed, and that speed gives them power. You, on the other hand, see all the risks. You see all the flaws and all the possible ways it could go wrong. But that awareness has become a cage. Instead of protecting you, it's freezing you. And so the more competent you become, the less qualified you actually feel. Real expertise always includes self-doubt. The better you get at something, the more nuance you see and the more uncertainty you feel. You begin to respect the complexity of the field, and you recognize that mastery is deep and wide. And that's literally what makes you cautious. You feel exposed because you're honest, you know what's missing, and you assume everyone else can see it too. Meanwhile, the people who know far less walk around like they figured it all out, and that fake certainty makes them look like leaders, even when they're just guessing. Confidence gets rewarded before competence does. People are drawn to conviction because they want to believe, and they'll buy into whoever seems sure of themselves, even if they're dead wrong. This is how fake gurus, clueless founders, and influencers and half-baked experts dominate spaces they don't deserve to lead. They're just louder. That's literally it. Once they gain traction, their early wins create even more belief, and more belief draws more followers. And more followers draws more clients, more money, etc. But you, on the other hand, you stay quiet because you don't want to mislead. You don't want to look like a fraud. You wait for full mastery, but the world isn't designed to reward quiet mastery. It rewards whoever shows up the most confidently. And you already know someone who's dumber than you and further ahead than you, probably several people. And they didn't get there by being a genius. They just didn't wait. They didn't care if they were wrong. They didn't obsess over optics or polish or perfection. They just looked foolish and kept going. They didn't know what they were doing and they kept going. They failed publicly and they just kept going. And by going, they got better. The reps built the skill. The action built the understanding. The movement built the edge. You might even feel a twinge of anger when you see them win. How the hell are they ahead of me? You're probably asking yourself. But that feeling is your buried potential screaming at you to get off the bench. Smart people tend to isolate themselves, while dumb people build momentum through community. The competent sit alone, read more, they think more, they hide more, they think they're doing something, while in reality they're just creating this little echo chamber with just themselves in it. And they feel like they have to earn their seat before stepping into the room, and they rarely seek feedback, so they have no external reference point to tell them that they're ready. Without momentum or encouragement, they always collapse inwards, and the pressure builds and action dies. The unqualified, on the other hand, they're loud. You see them online. They collaborate, they jump into communities, they ask questions, they share wins, they pitch half-baked products on Shark Tank, and that noise creates visibility. That visibility gets rewarded. You assume success is a meritocracy when it isn't. It's all about action. You think if you just get good enough, the world will find you and that someone will discover your hidden talent and reward you for it. But no one's coming. No spotlight swinging your way unless you walk onto the damn stage. Talent means nothing if no one sees it. Skill is irrelevant if it's never used. The market doesn't care if you're the best. It cares if you show up consistently. And it cares if you're out there. It cares if you keep putting something in front of people. Loud beats legit. Presence beats potential. Now, dumb people don't waste time with self-interrogation as well. They move before they're ready. They pitch before the product is finished. They launch before the strategy is tight. They're okay with being messy. They're okay learning as they go. They know nobody's perfect, so they never pretend to be and never want to be. Because they launch fast, they get feedback fast, and they improve through doing, not theorizing. You want the blueprint first. You want the whole picture. You want everything to be organized and perfect, but clarity comes from just movement, not from standing still. You think your knowledge should make you cautious, but it should make you dangerous instead. You know more than enough. You've been preparing, you've been studying, you've been absorbing for months, maybe even years. That was my case at least. But discipline without direction is just a delay loop. You've got the ammo, so pull the trigger. Knowledge is only power when it's used. Otherwise, it's just a form of hoarding, a clever way to just hide yourself. So start talking, start building, start posting, start selling, and you don't need more credibility, you just need a bit more courage. The most powerful people they know, they started when they were clueless. If you look into the early days of any creator, entrepreneur, expert, or influencer you admire, unless they've archived all of these memories, if you go back far enough, you'll see it. They were cringe, they were confused, they were kind of, the whole thing was kind of chaotic. They didn't wait for the perfect offer or the perfect system or the perfect moment. They just jumped in with a half a clue and all their energy. And they just figured it out as they go. Their first post most likely sucked. Their first sale was most likely very awkward. Their first client was definitely undercharged 100% of the time. That's how it works. The only difference between them and you is that they took the shot while you were still cleaning the gun. If the game rewards boldness more than brilliance, then you need to start playing a different game. You need to stop apologizing for being early. You need to stop waiting for someone to tell you you're allowed to play. You need to act like an idiot for a little while. Loud, messy, imperfect, committed, whatever you want to call it. That's how the real ones rise. That's how fools win. Once you see the pattern, you can't really unsee it. You've been losing to dumber people for far too long, not because they're better, but because they're bolder. That ends now. So let's talk about how to reverse the equation and force confidence to serve you. So let's talk about the confidence shortcut you must take. The fastest way to gain real confidence is really to stop waiting for it and start manufacturing it. Most people think confidence is something you earn after you've earned the right, after you've done enough, learned enough, proved enough. That belief is dead weight. Confidence isn't a reward, it's more so a weapon. And the people who win are the ones willing to fake it until the feedback loop actually starts kicking in. When you move before you're sure, you create wins, and those wins make you feel, keyword, legit. That feeling leads to more action. More action equals more evidence, and evidence is what builds true internal certainty. It's not lying to believe in yourself early. It's strategy. You're not pretending you know everything. You're acting like you belong in the game because you actually do. And confidence is not a feeling, it's a decision. You don't wait for it, you don't feel into it, you choose it. You create it in the same way you create momentum, through decisive movement. You speak before your voice stops shaking. You pitch while you're still learning. You publish while you still hate your first draft. That's how you gain leverage. You don't need permission from anyone. The moment you stop outsourcing your self-worth to the outside world, you free yourself to actually start building your own. And you walk into the room like you're supposed to be there, and the room will start to agree with you. Not because you're a fraud, but because your posture teaches people how to treat you. All competence begins with incompetence, but not all incompetence leads to confidence. There's a difference between staying stuck and learning in motion. The dumb fail upwards because they're in motion. The small stalls downwards because they refuse to act without guarantees. You don't become an expert and then start. You start, you learn, you stumble, you tweak, and then you become a true expert. What makes you sharp isn't just study, it's exposure. It's putting yourself in real situations where you have to figure out things under fire. And so the confidence cycle is brutally simple. You act, you adapt, you advance, you repeat. There's no other route. There's no secret tunnel. It's just this path walked again and again. And confidence is built like strength, through reps under resistance. You don't build muscle by thinking about push-ups. You build it by pushing against something. Same with belief in yourself. You need friction, you need a bit of pressure, and you learn to stay calm when your hands are shaking. You learn to keep speaking when the words stumble. Every time you do, you raise your baseline. And so the shake gets smaller, the bounce back gets faster, the screw up doesn't kill you. It actually hardens you. And confidence is trained. It's not granted. You don't wait for it. You earn it in the trenches, in the lunch, in the post that gets no likes, in the pitch that flops, in the call that goes sideways, but still teaches you everything you needed to know. So hiding from embarrassment is hiding from growth. Confidence doesn't live in your head. It's a public currency. You have to put something out there. Let people see your work. Let them hear your voice. Let them know what you're building. Some of them will ignore it. Maybe a lot of them. Some of them will criticize it. That's okay. That means you're in the game. That means you're visible. That means you actually exist. You're out there. You can't be powerful if you're invisible. You can't make money, gain influence, or build leverage in silence. You don't need to be less anxious or less worried or anything like that. You just need to do the thing while you're still anxious, while you're still worried. That's the real medicine. And so you're not aiming to feel confident, you're aiming to become undeniable. Stop trying to feel ready and stop chasing comfort. Stop chasing a magical feeling that was never the goal in the first place. The people you admire aren't fearless. I talk with a lot of them. They all experience fear. They're all a bit anxious. They just kept moving forward while being afraid. They made themselves unignorable by being everywhere, by doing everything and refusing to hide. Once you stop chasing the feeling and start chasing the effect, what your confidence lets you do, you start actually playing a whole new game. Confidence without action is fantasy, and action without confidence is just transformation. So when you move while scared, you send signals to your nervous system that you're safe anyway, and that rewires your baseline. Every rep rewrites your self-image, just like in the gym. Every exposure teaches your brain that discomfort doesn't kill you. Eventually, the friction fades, and what once felt terrifying becomes familiar, and what's familiar often becomes effortless. Confidence isn't just about feeling good. It's really about becoming someone who can do hard things, someone who acts before they're certain, someone who creates without waiting. So if you want confidence, increase the frequency of failure. Don't overthink the next move. Just do more outreach, more offers, more content, more tries. The faster you cycle through failures, the quicker you collect data, the faster you adapt. Eventually, you fail so often that it loses its sting. You stop making it mean anything about you, because it's just part of the game. The person who takes 100 imperfect actions will always beat the person who's still perfecting their first move. The person who has 100 average days will always beat the person who has one perfect day. So confidence is not about certainty, it's about refusal. You refuse to play small, you refuse to stay quiet, you refuse to let your fear set the size of your life. You draw a line, you step over it, and you don't look back. And that's the moment your confidence starts becoming real. Not because you're fearless, but because you finally understand that waiting is more dangerous than moving. It really is. You remind yourself every day, you're not here to feel ready. You're here to get in the ring and actually swing. That's where belief is born. And that's when you make stuff happen in your life. So it's not the confident who win. It's the ones who act like it until they are. There is no better time. There's no magical future version of you that's more ready than the version reading this sentence right now. Now that you've dismantled the illusion of confidence and seen how it's actually built, the next step is to use that momentum to push forward into action so bold it forces the world to pay attention. All right, so here's how to basically weaponize the curve and start now. So the Dunning-Kruger curve isn't your enemy. It's actually your leverage. Most people see it as a flaw in others. They laugh at the overconfident idiot who thinks he's a genius after reading one article. But the real mistake is thinking you need to avoid that phase. Every person who ever achieved anything great rode the same wave. Blind confidence, painful awakening, focused humility, and earned competence. You can't skip the curve. You either fight it and delay your growth, or you embrace it and speed it up. If you're going to be wrong anyway in the beginning, and you are, then why not be wrong in public while making moves instead of being right in private while going nowhere? You need to give yourself full permission to actually suck. Your first draft will suck. Your first call will suck. Your first client, your first post, your first funnel, they'll all be clunky, awkward, and most likely underwhelming. That's not a bug, that's the feature. The version of you you're trying to become lives on the other side of that phase. You're allowed to be a beginner. You are allowed to look foolish. You are allowed to not know what the hell you're doing. The faster you accept that, the faster you free yourself to learn through doing instead of waiting through planning, quote unquote. So your only job is to start. Everything else is noise. And planning is fine. Strategy is helpful, but if you're using those as a way to avoid action, you're just dressing up fear. If you're still mapping things out, 6 months later, you're stalling. If you're still refining the perfect offer, you're hiding. So launch the thing, say the thing, post the thing, sell the thing, get in the room, hit publish, do something that moves the needle in real time. No one ever learned to swim by reading the manual. You have to actually get wet. You have to flail, and you have to trust that you won't drown. Embrace the peak of Mount Stupid on purpose. Be loud, be bold, be wrong, and let yourself step into the arena with too much confidence and not enough clarity. That's where the best lessons live. Because once you make those first mistakes, you'll actually start to see what matters. The noise will fall away, the signal will rise, and that humility will be real instead of performative, not self-conscious, just quiet competence. And the faster you climb that first peak and fall off the edge into actual learning, the faster you build real authority. So set rules for volume instead of perfection. Instead of asking, is this good enough? Ask, did I ship today? Drop one piece of content every day for 30 days without skipping and without second guessing, for example. Make 5 offers this week without overthinking and without refining the copy 37 times. Movement compounds, not quality, not brilliance, just pure, raw, reckless volume. That's what builds momentum. That's what builds edge. So start in public, start where people can actually see you. Visibility creates pressure, and pressure forges clarity. It sharpens your message, and it forces you to get better, actually faster. Will people judge you? Yes. Will some ignore you? Definitely. But that's the cost. You don't get to be seen after you're great. You get great by being seen. And so even better, sometimes people will buy, even when you're not ready, because your rawness is perceived as real, because your energy sells. And the only way to get feedback from the market is to be in the market, not on the sidelines, not in theory, in motion, actually doing something. So use the curve as your story instead of your shame. People relate to struggle. They resonate with imperfection. They want to root for someone who's climbing. Share the early days, share the mess, share the voice cracks, share the tech fails, share the awkward sales calls. You're not pretending to be a guru. You're showing people what it looks like to actually rise. And that's what people see as magnetic. When you own the stage you're in, no one can use it against you. That's how you actually take your insecurity and turn it into your content. So stop overthinking the how and pick one thing and then just go all in. Start a newsletter, launch a coaching offer, build a productized service, do short form, do YouTube. It doesn't matter. Just actually choose something and give it 30 days, 90 days, even better. Daily reps, no pivoting, no tweaking, just pure focused execution. Track your inputs instead of your results. Did you do your part? That's all that matters. That's the only scoreboard that matters right now. And actually, that's the only scoreboard that matters ever. Did you do your part? Let the results take care of themselves. And once your execution muscle is built, you'll have the energy and clarity to actually add layers, refine your offers, improve your systems, and so on. But only after you've earned that right through action. Before that, there's no point. So if you start now, you instantly become the kind of person who starts. It's not about the result, it's about the identity shift. From watcher to doer, from consumer to producer, from planner to executor, from passive to player. Every action reinforces that shift. Every time you hit publish, you pitch, or you post, you remind yourself who you are now. And eventually, it's not just what you do, it's who you are. And that identity is unshakable. You stop needing the world to approve of you, and you start approving of yourself. And that's the deepest confidence you'll ever know. That's the goal. So you've waited long enough, and you've read enough, and you've seen the patterns, you've studied the curve. The next move is brutally simple. Just start. And if you do it right, it will create a ripple so strong, I promise you, that it shifts every part of your trajectory from here on out. So with that being said, let's go over what we covered. We talked about the real enemy not being ignorance. We talked about why fools win and you wait. We talked about the confidence shortcut you must take. We talked about how to weaponize the curve and actually start now. We're at the review. And finally, your action items for the day or the next few days. First, pick one action that exposes you to risk and make you visible, then do it today. Launch messy, sell early, publish raw, take the hit, let people see the version of you that's still becoming. That's where all your power lives. And build a streak of daily output for 30 days or 90 days or even just 180 days. Not thinking, not planning, not preparing, just doing. Use quantity to override your fear. Let repetition crush your hesitation. And anytime you feel self-doubt creeping in, remind yourself dumber people than you are winning. Not because they're better, but because they're bolder. So act like you belong, and eventually you won't even need to pretend. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like, comment below, subscribe to the channel for more. If you want to work with me personally, one-on-one, then make sure to book a call from the second link in the description. If you want this document as well as every other document I've created, as well as the trainings, then make sure to join the free community from the first link in the description. With that being said, again, thank you for being here, and I'm going to see you in the next one.